So to start off, I rather than going through the YouTube videos to understand the pattern of cat and everything, what I did was to get one of the previous year's cat papers and solve that down. So from doing that exercise, I was able to find out my strength areas and my weak areas. I still remember correctly that my IIM Calcutta's interview was the most stressful. The professors grilled me on basic mathematics, probability, and the kind of work that I used to do in my previous company and everything. So the first in line was IIM Bangalore, which rejected me, and then came the result of IIM Shillong, which I converted, and then Accelerate, which I also managed to convert, and then all of the rest of the IIMs followed the suit. Hello everyone, myself Somesh Sharma, and today I am here to share with you all my journey on how I cracked CAT and managed to convert IIM Calcutta. I was born and brought up in Bikaner in Rajasthan. I pursued my undergraduation in mechanical engineering from IIT Jodhpur. After my undergraduation, I joined L&T Energy in the project management department. While I was working at L&T, I realized that there aren't many opportunities for a mechanical engineer for career progression. Either one could do a master's in engineering from abroad, or one could pursue an MBA either from India or either from abroad. Since many of my colleagues who were at L&T left their job to pursue an MBA, and that's when I started to explore this area in more depth. So I started researching about CAT, what are the top B schools of the country, and what kind of scores one would need to get into them. And I also did one other thing to convince me about the decision to do an MBA. So one day I casually made an Excel to do a break-even analysis, and the parameters that I used were the salary that I was withdrawing at that time, the kind of fees that I would need to pay to get into the top B schools, and the kind of average placement that I would get after I graduate from those B schools. And what I found out that about 5 to 6 years post MBA, I would be able to do a break even, and that convinced me that I should also appear for CAT. So my CAT journey started while I was in the second year of my job. Since this was my first time appearing for CAT, I initially asked a few of my friends who managed to crack CAT for help, and they suggested me to buy two different mock test series. Also, from my own research about the kind of scores that one would need to get into the top B schools, I was able to find out the importance of one's own profile into the admission criteria for the top IIMs. Since I had a relatively weaker profile, I was totally focused on getting the maximum score as possible in the CAT exam. So to start off, I rather than going through the YouTube videos to understand the pattern of CAT and everything, what I did was to get one of the previous year's CAT papers and solve that down. So from doing that exercise, I was able to find out my strength areas and my weak areas. I also purchased two mock test series, one from Time and one from IMS. I started off in around June, so I had around 5 to 6 months of time left for the CAT examination to prepare. So initial 2 months went into kind of going through the material, going through all the syllabus and completing the booklets. So basically, I went through all the QA subject topics that were there. I also saw what was there in VARC and DALR. So initial 2 months went into this preparation, and I was also appearing for mocks. So I was appearing for sectional mocks on the weekdays and two full mocks during the week. So one in the middle of the week and one on the weekend. So my overall strategy was something like this. I used to track my scores in an Excel file for basically these two purposes. One was to see whether I'm improving mock by mock or not. And the other thing is to track what are my strength areas and what are my weak areas. So let's take an example of VARC section here. So VARC section has broadly two areas, VA and RC. So after about giving 10 to 15 mocks, what I realized is that I was consistently performing better in RC compared to VA. As in my accuracy in RC was greater than VA. So what strategy I developed for VA-RC is that initially I would do all the RCs and I would only go to VA if the time permits. And that's the actual strategy I used for my actual D-Day as well. Since I was working, I had relatively less time to actually do prepare for CAT. So what I used to do is, rather than analyzing all the questions of a mock, I would only analyze the questions that I got incorrect or the questions that I was not able to solve. Coming to section wise strategies, so for VRC, one suggestion that everybody gives is that you read a lot and develop a habit of reading. So that is absolutely true, but for me, my job entailed that I had to read a lot of long documents. So basically my this area was covered kind of. For DLR, there is no absolute strategy in place. You only crack those DLR sets if you gain a lot of experience in solving those. So only solving mocks religiously would develop your habit to solve DLR particularly well. One thing that I would recommend is you just dedicate around 2-3 minutes in the starting to go through all the sets and then develop the kind of strategy and the order that you would be solving those sets. So initially you would want to solve the easier sets first to develop confidence, and then you relatively move to relatively tougher sets towards that. So for QA, what I used to do is to make a formula sheet separately. So what I would do is just copy paste the formulas all in one place in a separate Word file. So let's say before starting a mock, I need to revise all the formulas that are there. I would just have a look at my Word file. So rather than spending time on internet, I would just save a little bit of time by just going through that Word file quickly. And one other thing about QA I would like to mention is that do not just go for the shortcuts, rather than prepare with the basics in place. So again, I know that many channels on YouTube and many education institutes would give out those shortcuts in place to solve those questions quickly. But what happened in my slot is that all of the questions that were there in so I appeared for slot 3 in CAT 2021. All the questions that were there in QA were kind of lengthy and were only be solved if you had the basics in place through those basic logic and basic formulas only. No shortcuts could basically be used. So again, I would recommend all the aspirants do use shortcuts if you feel that this could be applicable, but again have that basics in place so that if the time comes, you could also rely on those basics to solve questions. So I appeared for CAT in the last week of November and ZAD in the first week of December. I also appeared for SNAP and NMAT around that time. So around New Year, the results of the exam started coming in, and I managed to get 99.86 in CAT, 99.78 in SAT, around 19.5 in SNAP, and around 243 marks in NMAT. So the calls for the interviews also started coming in after 2 or 3 weeks. So the next phase that lied ahead was of the GDPI preparation phase. One advice that I was able to get from the strategies that the previous year's aspirants who managed to convert these top MBA institutes from their stories that they used to share on the Inside IAM videos and blogs, etc., was to form a group of like-minded people who are all appearing for those interviews and are preparing for the GDPI. So one thing that existed during that time was the SimCat 2022 Telegram group, and I was also active on that. So I managed to get hold of a few people from there, and they also got some of their friends along. And at last, we formed a group of 10 people who were all looking to convert top B schools at that time, and were all preparing for the GDPI. So what we used to do is to conduct bi-weekly meetings where we shared all the updates and our strategies that how are we preparing for the GDPI. So the first in line for me was IIM Coequor's interview, and then IIM Calcutta's. Some interviews were relatively easier and some were very stressful. I still remember correctly that my IIM Calcutta's interview was the most stressful. The professors grilled me on basic mathematics, probability, and the kind of work that I used to do in my previous company and everything. And some interviews were relatively easier and chill. So for say MDI's interview, IIM Lucknow's interview were kind of easy for me, and the professors were also easygoing on me. So all in all, I managed to give around 17 interviews, including CAP. So after those interviews, the results started coming in. NMIS was the first in line to give a convert to me, and then Symbiosis also followed along. And then entailed a long wait of around 2 months till the results of the IIM started coming in. So the first in line was IIM Bangalore, which rejected me, and then came the result of IIM Shillong, which I converted, and then Accelerate, which I also managed to convert, and then all of the rest of the IIMs followed the suit. So at the end of the result season, I was sure that I would be joining IIM Calcutta. So, in the end, a few tips for the CAT 2023 aspirants. The first is to start early, and the other is to do not just focus on studying and reading, do also focus on practice and give and appear for mocks as and when time permits. The third thing is to enroll into two different kind of mock test series, so you get an idea on the kind of questions that different coaching institutes set. The fourth thing is to go through the various MBA preparation blogs, such as the videos from Inside IM and the other blogs written by the people who managed to convert those colleges previously. So you get an idea on the kind of strategies that they used to follow, and you could also apply some of those. Who knows? And the last thing, but not the least, is I cannot stress enough on the importance of the peer group. So at MBA, you will learn about the importance of sharing best practices, whether among organizations or whether among people. And that's what we used to do even before coming to MBA. In our meetings, we used to share what one was able to find, whether any useful resource was there that one may managed to get hold of. So these kind of the things we used to share among ourselves. So yeah, that's all from my side. Good luck for your journey and for CAT 2023.